Mike Landis. I'm the owner of Landis Sons Trucking out of Lititz, Pennsylvania. We run 2 trucks, mine, and I have a guy leased on. I'm a 3rd generation truck driver, first one to have my own. And I have here a 1999 362 cabover Peterbilt. It's actually, I have a couple cabover Petes. I seem to apparently like them more than most people do. My first truck was an 88 double bunk cabover Pete, and I still have that one. And then I happened to run across this truck when I first started trucking out of state. When I turned 21, I used to see this truck going, and I always thought, man, that's a cool old truck. It was obviously not as old as I thought it was, but the way it's painted, which I have a story behind why it's painted the way it is. Randomly through Facebook, a buddy of mine back in spring of 17 was hunting for truck parts at a yard over in New Jersey, and this truck was sitting here for sale. And he posted on Facebook, and I'm like, man, what? So I'm like, that's that truck that hauled for anyone on the East Coast will know the red cabover Peterbilt that hauled for ShopRite. Okay. That guy delivered groceries with it. Anyway, so it had a new motor in it and had new transmission and stuff. It was pretty well taken care of mechanically. And I thought, man, that truck's probably way too much. So I didn't bother calling about it. And I let it go a couple months, and I had some motor issues with my truck. I was my 88 at the time, and it was just irritating me. And I thought, I wonder if that truck ever sold. I got a hold of my buddy. He got me the number for the yard where it was at. Not the guy that was selling it, but the yard where it was at. So I called this guy. It's typical northern Jersey yard. Yeah! I'm like, hey, is there a red cabover Peterbilt for sale there? And he's like, well, yeah, but that ain't my truck. I'm like, look, is there any way? I said, call the owner and ask him if you can give me his number or whatever, because I get. Anyway, the guy ends up giving me the number. He goes, oh, I know him. He's all right. So I call him, and it's this old guy, Bennie Thomas. I bought this truck from. He's a little spindly old black guy from Jersey, trucker his whole life. And I call him, and he's very soft-spoken, very quiet, and so, And I say, yeah, I'm calling about this truck. Yeah, I still have it. Okay. What do you want for it? He told me, and I was like, what? That's it? I'm thinking to myself, that's it, because I know, he's like, oh, it's got the motor on it. It's a factory reman from Detroit. It's got a 60 Series 12.7 in it. He goes, it only has 10,000 miles on it, and the transmission's only got like 100,000, and the rears are new. And I'm like thinking, this guy's gonna want 40 or 50 grand for this truck, right? I bought this truck for $17,000. But the reason being, he goes, this thing's a cabover. I'm like, listen, I run a cabover. I get it. So I went to look at it on the way to the beach one weekend in July. And he told me, he goes, listen, I'm old. He goes, it needs polished. Whatever. And it wasn't. It needed washed, polished. It was everything. But anyway, I could tell by looking at it, it was in pretty decent shape. And he's an old trucker, and he goes, I could tell, even though he maybe didn't have it spit shine, this truck meant something to this guy. And he was retiring to take care of his wife because she was in bad health and he needed to be home and stuff like that. So he's like, well, I just want to make sure you know what you're getting. And so I pulled my phone out and I showed him pictures of my 88 that I have stretched out and cleaned up and everything. And he's like, oh, wow, okay. And then I got to talking to him, and I said, so, why does this truck have the paint job on it that it has? Like, fairly newer. This is typical back in the day. He goes, listen, I've hauled groceries for 45 years. I've been trucking. That's all I've done. For the same people with my own trucks. He said, I bought my first truck was a 73 352 cabover Peterbilt in 75. He said in 78, I ordered a brand new one. He said, and I liked that 73 so much I had it made identical. He goes, then I got an 86 and it was identical, and a 92 and this 99. He goes, my entire career I've driven nothing but cabover Pete's that look just like this. Wow. And so the truck number is 762. Yeah. And most of the times my truck numbers, because I race motocross, are my number, my kids' numbers, my trailers are lettered with my kids' numbers, whatever, which are 3-digit numbers. Like my 88 is truck number 869 because that's my racing number. And I thought, you know what? I'm not even changing the number on this truck. It's a 3-digit number, which I use anyway, and it's the real only number that's ever been on this truck. and I just, me and Bennie connected so cool, just talking about trucking and stuff like that. it was a few months before I got involved in like the ELD protest in October of 17, and part of the reason he was getting out of trucking was because he didn't want to deal with ELDs. We got into that conversation. Here you have me as a younger generation truck driver, even though at the time I had 14 years experience, whatever it was, and here you have a guy that's all but 80 years old that did it his whole life, and we're there able to talk about trucking. But I grew up with the old ways of trucking, so it was pretty cool. I got a picture of me and him in front of the truck before I left with it and everything. And the truck's just an interesting piece because it's so odd the way it's built. It's got the windows in the back. It's a single bunk, but it's got it's got the 12.7 Detroit, a 13 over. It's got 2-speed rear ends in it. It's got 355, 483 ratios that you can shift on the fly. So the thing hauls ass and then pulls buildings down. Yeah. And it's got, you know, air track 46,000 pound heavy haul suspension on it. And the guy hauled groceries. But he ran New York City, Massachusetts, New England. He built it like a brick house. And you know what? I pull food grade tankers with it, which is not easy on a truck. And this truck just, all my cabover Pete's I've ever had, and other people I know that have had them, they're the type of truck that was just built when stuff was built to last. And I love driving it. It's a cool old truck. Everyone thinks it's way older than what it is because of the way it looks, I guess, the paint job and all. But it's got a cool little history behind it. Even now, years after he hasn't had it, I'll be going down the road running New England, and if I'm going up to Massachusetts or something, someone will be like, "Hey, that's the old ShopRite truck." But to me, it's kind of funny because I used to see it as a younger driver in my 88, you know, be bopping around and think, "Oh, that's cool." Now I own it. So.